And as I was telling Jennifer, I had met Eric Dingler, who's the Chief Learning Officer of Deloitte, a number of years ago, and he had talked about how they do talent management work at Deloitte. Quite honestly, I was blown away with some of the work that they were doing around a program that they referred to as Moments That Matter. I thought there were a lot of kind of key lessons, even though we're in a very different business. A lot of the strategies, a lot of the approaches they used, I think hold valuable lessons for us. So I'm very pleased to welcome to the stage Jennifer Radin.
Thank you, Andy, for that wonderful introduction. Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Radin, and I'm the national leader of our healthcare provider human capital practice. And I actually have the honor, and my group has the honor, of serving many of you in the room. It's an honor to share this platform with such esteemed leaders in our industry and have a dialogue about leadership and leadership development, and share, as Andy referenced, what we're doing at Deloitte in the area of leadership. So, of course, I don't need to convince anyone in this room about why leadership is important, but I am a consultant, and so we love our data, so I'm going to share a little bit with you if that's okay. We do a study every year called the Global Human Capital Trends Analysis. What we discovered through this work was those organizations in the marketplace that focus on leadership and leadership development actually are 20 times better at employee retention, 12 times better at executing on change and growth, 8 times better at creating a performance-based culture, 8 times better at building a talent bench, and 7 times better at achieving business results. And then when we look at the equity markets, what we know is those companies that are focusing on leadership and have strong leadership teams actually get rewarded with a premium of about 15%. And those that do not get penalized anywhere up to about 20%. Part of our survey looks at and surveys 2,500 global executives every year. And as you can see, while 86% of them said that leadership is an urgent issue for them, only about 13% said that their development programs and their focus on leadership was where it needed to be. So there's work to be done. And organizations take on leadership for many reasons related to strategy. What you see here on your left are a number of the business triggers that we see in the marketplace that would drive a set of leadership development initiatives. So this can be around growth by acquisition, or hyper growth organically, or perhaps business restructuring, or employee engagement that maybe has gone down a bit, or turnover that you're seeing, all of which signals a demand and a need for greater leadership development. For Deloitte, our triggers were really around growth, both by acquisition as well as organic growth. And because we've been growing on such a steep curve over the last few years, we found we need to be very planful about succession and very planful about how we develop leaders. Once the business trigger has been established, then there are really 3 key questions to ask. What leadership do we need? What leadership do we have? And how do we accelerate that development and that growth? I'm going to focus on number 3 today. The 70-20-10 leadership development model is something we've adopted at Deloitte. And what this says, as the name implies, is that a learning model for leaders is really 70% in development and on-the-job learning, about 20% coaching and mentoring, and really only 10% in the classroom. And this may be surprising to people, but we've adopted this and we found it very effective. And I'm sure you're familiar with the studies that talk about how formal development programs, while important, are not as impactful as on-the-job learning. In fact, on-the-job experiences and learning is 3 times as impactful as what you do in the classroom. Our CEO, Jim Moffitt, when he came into office, did what all good CEOs do. He gathered his advisors into a small dark room for a few months and provided them with a lot of good food and drink and said, we need a strategy, create a strategy for me. And out came the strategy. But then what he did that's different than what many CEOs do is he put that strategy on a page, a single page, and he cascaded it out through the organization to the partners, the directors, the senior managers, the senior consultants. And while to folks in the room, I imagine these icons and these phrases probably don't have a lot of meaning, to the partners and directors at Deloitte, we all can tell you exactly what our agenda is on every single one of these 4 pillars and in every one of these areas. And in fact, we've been asked to identify 2 of the areas on the strategic choices on this page. and figure out how we're going to move that agenda forward. So, for example, it could be in the owners and our people pillar, figuring out how can we create more impactful experiences for our staff. And on the clients and business growth, how are we going to move our global agenda forward? Or it could be in the area of innovation and service delivery. How do we make the way we serve clients better? You'll remember the 7-20-10 model. That classroom learning is only 10% of it. However, that 10% needs to be really, really impactful. And so what we did at Deloitte is created 3 courses that all partners and directors are obligated to take over the first 2 to 3 years of being admitted or promoted. They're 2-day courses, in person, and they follow the consultative process, as you can see. So the first one is the art of empathy, from the Greek pathos, meaning feeling. How do you really understand someone's feelings, where they are, what's meaningful to them? How do we understand our clients and their success, and how do we align our success with their success? How do we walk in their shoes and develop a true partnership? And how do we listen in a way that we can be empathetic? The second course, the art of inquiry, from the Latin inquire, the act of asking. Here we talk about what information do we need to gather, quantitative and qualitative. How do we query those data sets to develop the analytics that we need in order to create insights for our clients? What are the patterns, the root causes? And then it culminates in the art of the story. So once the recommendations are developed together, the analysis is complete, how do we share those recommendations in an engaging and collaborative way? A way that's compelling, that creates aligned leadership, so that that leadership team can then take those forward. What's that glide path to get from today to tomorrow? The third element of the model is experiences. Our challenge was, how do we get 65,000 people in the US to adopt leadership behaviors in a short period of time? And the answer was Moments That Matter. Moments That Matter is a way of creating exceptional experiences for our talent internally and hopefully also for our clients. And it's viral, so it can be cascaded through the organization quickly and with great speed. It's a framework and a common set of language that institutionalizes leadership behaviors. Moments are all around us. And if we can capture those moments and make them meaningful for people, that's where the success comes in Moments That Matter. When someone on your team is presenting in an executive forum and their data is old or inaccurate, and therefore they have they've drawn conclusions that may not be right, that's a moment. When someone's boss is transferred to another business unit and the team is feeling destabilized because of this loss, that's a moment. When a colleague has a sudden family event, and we've all experienced those, and needs help, that's a moment. And how we respond and act upon these moments is what makes it meaningful. The moves are behaviors that make the difference, the responses that are available that we can use. And we've discovered there are about 10. Now there may be 8, there may be 12, but we've honed in on 10. For each of the moments that I just described, any one of these moves can be applied to create a deliberate choice. For the boss who is transferred, perhaps changing the lens for his or her team or department. Talking about why change can be a really positive experience and provide opportunities for others to fill that leadership role. For the team member who had the wrong data during their presentation, perhaps owning as her supervisor and not distancing, but actually stepping in and taking ownership for what happened in the room. For the colleague with the family event, showing up and leaning in. And we're all busy and no one has time, but it's making the time to be able to do that. Creating and responding to these moments is how we role model leadership behavior and decision making in an experiential way. Exposure, the fourth element. We have lots of opportunity for exposure in leadership development at Deloitte. On our projects, where coaching and feedback is a regular daily event and activity. Another opportunity for exposure is in our promotion level programs. So at Deloitte, when you're promoted to another level, which is about every 2 to 3 years, we take you out of the market for 4 days, and we put you into a program taught by partners and directors where you are in small groups, experiential learning, scenario-based, and you learn the new skills and capabilities that you need to go from senior consultant to manager, or from senior manager to partner or director. Through our high talent academies and boot camps, where we talk about critical conversations and personal branding. How do you represent yourself to the organization and to the client? So about 5 years ago, our CEO, our former CEO, Barry Salzberg, had a vision. He wanted to build a university that all of Deloitte from all over the world would come to for leadership development. And it was at a time when the trend in learning was actually going very virtual. So bricks and mortar were no longer the thing, and a lot of partners in the US practice, frankly, didn't understand why Barry wanted to spend our capital to build this thing. But he did. Barry's a very convincing guy. He's now the global CEO, so you can imagine how convincing he was. And we now have Deloitte University in Dallas. It's a 250,000 square foot facility with 50 interactive multimedia rooms, 50 breakout pods, 300 hotel rooms, an entertainment hall, a gym that is one of the most advanced I've ever seen, and fresh, healthy cuisine from around the world to make our international guests feel at home. And this is where everyone comes, and this is where all the action is for all of the courses that I just described and the level programs. We all come here. So it's an area of convening around leadership. And I think that co-location is actually incredibly important and powerful. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the model and about what we do, moments that matter, exposure, experience, and how we develop leaders at Deloitte at all levels. And hopefully these little glimpses, and I know it's been a sort of rapid pass-through, have been helpful. Hopefully something you can take pieces of back to your organizations. So what I've learned is that leadership is a deliberate choice. We make or don't make it every day. And in fact, I would say almost in every moment of every day. And it's really about doing the right thing instead of always doing things right. It's about knowing that your own success is only as good as the success of your team, and that all boats rise and fall with the tide. It's about doing the hard work to understand your own story and where and why you ended up where you are today, and then sharing that with folks in your organizations to create connectivity, to build trust, and sometimes to create a little bit of vulnerability so they have some access to who you are. It's about creating those moments that we talked about earlier and using the moments to recognize someone, to deepen an understanding, to push forward an innovation, to sustain and create trust. And in those moments and times of turbulence, and we've all been there, especially in healthcare, it's about leaning in and using facts and data to make decisions and to act with intent. It's about shifting from linear thinking to systemic thinking and what I call solving for simultaneous equations on a very regular basis. It's about creating an environment in which diversity isn't something we count, but something we relish and nurture because we know it's a competitive advantage. Diversity of culture, nationality, orientation, religion, belief, generation, gender. It's the courage to set a vision and to inspire others to face in the same direction that you are. So together as leaders, I think we can achieve great things in this industry, and this industry is really in need of us all being great. So thank you for sharing your lunch with me. I appreciate it.